Welcome back to another Player 2 review discussion. Today I'm joined by Player 2 Editor-in-Chief, legend, Matt Hewson. How are you, mate?
Legend, I don't know about that. Just sucker that was silly enough to start a website, that's all.
And then you carry us through, so you're doing an awesome job. You and I are both fortunate enough, thanks to multiple different parties, for turn left distribution locally. I think where did you say you scored your
I'm
copy from?
from direct from Koei Temco.
We, as anyone who's watching this video is probably well aware at this point, were lucky enough to score copies of Samurai Warriors 5, the latest game in the Samurai Warriors franchise. So that's Dynasty Warriors, there's Hyrule Warriors in terms of all the licensed stuff with Zelda, there's Dragon Quest, they've done Fire Emblem, they've done Persona, they've done a whole host of different IP stuff. But Samurai Warriors is the latest in that franchise, and I hadn't actually played a Samurai Warriors game before this, had you?
No, I haven't really played this style of game much at all. The last one I played was, I think it was 99 Nights, I think it was called. It was a launch title for the Xbox
Yeah, I remember that one.
360.
Didn't play
So
it.
that was the last time I actually played one of those. So it's been a while between drinks.
I guess that'll be interesting contrast then as we start to get into this conversation. For me, I've played a fair few Dynasty. I think I got introduced to Dynasty Warriors back on the PS2 with like Dynasty Warriors 2 or 3 or something like that. And I'd kind of come back to them every now and then because I kind of realised, at least in that period of time, that they were pretty much the same, just looking a little bit better every time. It was kind of your new entry of a sports game every year where it just looks that
Yeah,
little
yeah.
bit sharper or whatever, but it's basically the same thing. And I started to really fall back in love with them a little bit when they started to leverage some of those established IPs, as Zelda and Dragon Quest and those sort of things. That was kind of a sweet spot for me. But even then, they always mostly still felt the same. This one struck me, and I don't know about you, but it really struck me because of the visuals around the game at first. Like the
Yeah, the cell
the art
shading
style they've gone for.
style's really nice, isn't it?
Yeah,
It kind of emphasizes what the game is about, which is inherent silliness, I guess, and it feels more like a comic book take on history, which is what the game is, as opposed to something serious. And I think it suits it.
but when you're slicing through hundreds of guys
Yeah,
at a
yeah,
time that all look exactly the same, what can you expect? I guess.
yeah, yeah, and but they've done really well in. I think it was probably a smart move made because of the generation time, and they know a cell shaded style will work on a range of systems without pushing any system too hard.
Yeah,
So I think it was probably a tech choice, but it's worked really well in the end.
yeah. Now, as of when we record this, you've spent a hell of a lot more time with the game than I have. So I guess maybe even before we dive into the real specifics, and you'll be penning the review for the website as well.
Yep.
How does 99 Nights being your last experience with anything in kind of this Muso genre? How's that contrast?
It's like it's come a long way, the genre. Like I guess it's not a shock. It's been a long time since I last played it, but I mean the basics are still the same. There's still a ton of enemies that you've got to mash through with simple combos, and then you come up against like general characters that are a bit tougher, and you've got to be a bit more careful, I guess, when you take them on, and you can't just button mash. But I think the mechanics and the meta of the game has improved significantly,
Oh
which
yeah,
adds a whole lot of appeal to the genre. Before, it used to be literally just one mission after another. You just pump through. Wasn't really much in the way of RPG like
no, there were
upgrade
no other
trees or
systems in the
anything.
back then.
Yeah,
If you were good
it
at level
was.
one, you were good for the final one.
Yeah, that's it. So whereas now there's a lot of stuff they've built in that add to the game, and while the central concept, I guess, hasn't changed too much, those extra systems all add significantly to the experience. Like the sheer amount of characters you can play, and they generally feel fairly different when you play them
Yeah,
too. The different weapons all play differently. I mean, there's a couple of swords that are similar,
yeah.
but there's some crazy kind of talisman magicy sort of weapons, and there's some gun based weapons, and they all mix things up really nicely. And a lot of the time, the levels will give you a choice of who you want to play as, and you don't have to play as the one lead character from the story. You can actually play as side characters in the story, and that's
Which
a
is
really
always cool.
nice way to mix it up. Otherwise, you just end up with, like, I've kind of done it anyway with the main character from the story. Like he's at like level 30 or something, and all my
Nobunaga.
other, yeah,
Yeah,
Nobunaga, and all my other characters are like level 13. So, you
yeah.
know,
That sounds about right.
But yeah, I'm starting now that I'm kind of getting on. I'm mixing it up a bit and playing as different characters and really enjoying it.
And I guess they do try to dissuade you a little bit from going that same character over and over by kind of varying in terms of some of the enemy types you'll come across in the field. Like there's obviously some that will, and not just the generals, but even some of the goons you see out there, whether they're the big shield types or the ones with they're just kind of leading with with their spears
The
or their pikes
spears,
just kind of
yeah.
poked out, which is just if I see them. If I'm running towards them, I've strung together like a 6,000 hit combo and I'm chasing that 10,000 for the trophy.
Yeah.
And I see those guys, I just cry because I know I'm going to get hit and I know it's going to break my combo and it just shatters me. But
So those enemies in the shield enemies in that once you learn them, they're designed to be beaten with your ultimate moves, not
yeah,
your standard moves. So yeah, it's kind of dodging and using your abilities, and then working up to a point where you've got a special move to take them out. And then you actually get bonus money for doing that. So they
yeah.
really encourage you to use those specials on those particular types of enemies.
I think I'm golden until I knock out the first group with like a big Muso attack, and then I see another one that's following. I'm like, oh shit,
It's
I'm
another
all
one.
out.
Yep. Yep.
So I got it's the specifically the spear ones that have still got me in a bit of a spin at the moment. But I'm nowhere near as far through the game as you, so you're well versed in how to tackle the various different enemy types. But again, that does extend to even some of the generals themselves. Like and some are going to require to pick more mobile, agile characters, or at least they're trying to encourage you to pick
Yeah.
more mobile, agile characters because there's some that they're real aerialists. They'll bounce around through the sky more and strike from above. Obviously, you've got some range types, which I tried out a couple of the range types, and that was not for me whatsoever. In this kind of context where you can just get surrounded so easily, and the generals, you can find yourself in scenarios where there's 2, 3, 4 generals all rushing you at once, and to be exclusively ranged, or more or less exclusively ranged, that felt like a massive handicap. But
I think that's just part of the sacrifice of having so many characters available. Like there must be at least 30 characters to pick from once you've unlocked them all. So I think in their need to make everything feel different, which I wholeheartedly approve of, there's going to be some that aren't necessarily
work better than
suited.
others.
Yeah. It's kind of like that, Street Fighter Ultimate thing where you've got a million characters. Not all of them are going to be perfectly balanced.
Yeah.
So,
Now you mentioned obviously you've been pushing through Nobunaga's story. That's kind of in the main Muso mode. There's 2 different modes to speak of. The Muso mode, which is kind of your campaign, and then the Citadel mode, which unlocks shortly after, maybe an hour or so into your game, hour or
yep.
2 into your gameplay. Obviously, the main mode is that Muso one. But what do you think of the Citadel? The Citadel stuff that they introduced.
I actually like it, and I like the way the Citadel and the Muso mode work together. It kind of breaks up the Muso mode a bit because it can get a bit monotonous just running through the story, and there's a lot of names that rush at you very quickly, and it's very easy to get lost because it's very Japanese steeped history, and it's kind of hard to keep up sometimes with who they're talking about. So when things are getting a bit dense, you can switch to the Citadel mode, which is like almost like a horde mode from Gears of War or something,
Yeah, there's
where
hints of tower defense to it and all those sorts of things as well.
you kind of just protecting. You pick 2 characters and you protect your base from 3 waves of enemies, and there's little mini kind of objectives in the time period, and you get bonuses for completing those objectives. And you use that mode to kind of upgrade your buildings, which in turn let you upgrade your weapons and your mounts and things like that. So it's a nice little touch. It's fun. It's also a short burst way to play it. Some of the missions can get quite long, whereas the Citadel mode is a 15-minute sort of
5 to 10,
quick burst sort of thing, which is really nice. It also gives you the chance to level up some of your characters that you may not use in the story, and play around with some of the different weapon types and things like that. So it's kind of the playground mode, I guess, the mode where you get to try things, and there's no real disaster from failing or anything like that. And every time you play it, you get a little bonus, and you can boost up,
which you can bring back into the Muso mode,
into the main game. Yeah. So
which I mean, we were discussing beforehand, like that totally caught me unawares because I thought, as we discussed, I thought I'd go and try this out maybe an hour or 2 before we started recording. Like, yeah, okay, sure, I'll try the extra modes later on. Let's get into the meat and veg of this thing, and then realize that, as you just said, the Citadel's more or less essential because if you want to upgrade I suppose it's not 100% essential. You could just grind through the Muso mode because you can still level your characters up and your weapons and all those sort of things up without it, but without the dojo being upgraded. But it will add to your gameplay clock.
And you can't upgrade your weapons like bonus abilities without upgrading the blacksmith. So yeah,
it's still worth it. Yeah,
still worth it. Yeah.
And as you said, they're short bursts, so it doesn't feel like you're necessarily sinking an obscene amount of time into it or it's over the top. And it is still good fun in and of itself. It's still the same core gameplay. It's just they've kind of flipped the script a little bit and kind of what you're actually trying to do, which is you're trying to batten down the hatches and hold on as opposed to...
I did like the fact that it also
slice and dice.
Forces you to switch characters a lot more. Because generally, especially once you get into the 3-star and above missions on the Citadel, there's 2 points that you've got to defend. So you've got to switch between your characters a lot more and be aware of what's happening on the battlefield a bit more. So yeah, it adds a little bit of tactics to it that not a lot. It's not going to break the brain or anything, but it's a nice little addition to the formula.
Yeah, and as you said, there's a whole bunch of little pickups and items you get at the end of it that make it all worth it. Whether it's upgrades that you can then make at the dojo or the blacksmith, there's extra stuff that pops up at the shop. Even your stables, there's horses that you can unlock if you're getting the S rank and all those sorts of things. So there's plenty to kind of explore. And if you do want it, I mean, hell, even if you kind of ignore them for a little while or just get basic level scores and then come back a little bit OP later on and just blitz them, like that's you unlock all those perks as well. So it's still worth going and exploring it and then bring what you get back into the core mode. So it's set during that Sengoku era in Japan, which is kind of in the 1400s, early 1600s. But obviously, look, they try and focus on story. It is like based on a historical period, and there are some familiar names, a couple familiar names, if you know a little bit about Japanese history. But honestly, I felt like the story was mostly still kind of throwaway.
Yeah, look, they've tried to make a coherent storyline, I guess. And I do like that there's kind of 2 characters to focus on in the story mode, and some little branching where you focus on different characters as well as
the
2 main.
From a different perspective.
Yeah. So I mind that, and I think they do well at the little chapters and chunks of story, but the overall thing is very stilted and kind of makes a few leaps in logic and stuff that you kind of have to catch up on as you play. And
it's just trying to justify the gameplay.
It really is. And while they've used historical characters, and I do like the little tidbits on the loading screens where they talk about the actual history of that character, which is not a nice addition, just for a bit of background. But it's clear you read those descriptions of these characters and go, okay, they've taken a few liberties here. So yeah. So it's not a bad effort, but it's not going to win any awards.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess another thing that was interesting about, I guess this is kind of all the systems in the back end, was things like the XP, the stocking of the XP and all those sort of things, which was kind of a cool perk. So again, kind of going back to things that you can do at the dojo if you've upgraded it properly. But what do you think about the fact that you'll earn whatever XP and skill points and those sort of things you get during combat, but there's also the stock XP and all those sort of things that you can commit after the fact? What do you make of that?
You can even buy from the shop.
Well, that too, yeah.
I think it's a smart move when you've got so many characters in the game, and to have these stock XP that you can assign to whichever character you like. I think that's a really good move. So people don't have to level up all the characters by
you don't have
grinding.
To go back to level 1 and start grinding new characters from scratch.
So when you get to a point in the story where they give you the choice of a few different characters, players, you can pick as whoever you want, and know that you've probably got some XP in your bank to bring them up to standard for that mission, whatever the level needed may be. So I think it's kind of a smart choice in this case. I mean, having to level up all those other characters manually would be a nightmare. So I'm not sure how they could have done it any better, to be honest. It's a little cheaty in the way that money's pretty easy to come by, so you can buy your way a lot of levels, but, it is what you make of it, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, they just want you to be swinging your sword or whatever as often as you can, so empower the player.
It's a power fantasy. It's a power fantasy. That's all it is.
I definitely kind of thought of it as the ultimate power trip, which is kind of what I've always thought of a lot of these games. Like, when you're swinging your way through hundreds and thousands of different enemies, you are going on a massive power trip. But they're just trying to support that, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
The skill points and gems, I didn't necessarily feel like was doing anything revolutionary. It was all pretty basic in that space, though.
Yeah, all of it's pretty,
By the numbers.
stuff we've seen before. You get a fire gem, it makes fire. You get a, you get a health gem, you get more health. It's all pretty logical stuff. And I mean, it doesn't hurt to have it there, but it doesn't. Probably wouldn't hurt if it wasn't there either. You know, so yeah.
Any other kind of big thoughts on any of those key systems at all?
No, not particularly. I mean, I do like they've got quite a few systems there, and they all play together pretty well. None of it, while some of it feels like it's probably not necessary, it certainly doesn't hinder the game by having that stuff there.
Well, yeah,
so
I guess we know it's not necessary because of all the history of these games, but
Yeah.
as you said before, they're additive, and it does help.
and it creates I guess, a more rounded way to play this sort of title. It is still at its core going to get monotonous after a while. I can see that, but and I'm glad I haven't played a lot of these because I think because of that I'm enjoying this a lot more.
Yeah.
Had I played a lot of them, I would possibly find this a little bit, just the grind again, same old, same old. So I think it's going to depend on the player a lot, how much they, their personal history with the genre.
Yeah.
But it's a well put together game, and it does what it sets out to do quite well. There's no technical problems at all.
We should know what you're playing it on.
PlayStation 5. So it's a PlayStation 4 game, but I play it on the
PS5. Yeah, so we're in the same boat. Cool. I'd completely agree with that. It's not trying to reinvent the genre or do anything too crazy outside of kind of the visual style they've gone for with this one, which I do wholeheartedly approve of. I think they really nailed it. It looks great. Incredible in some of the cutscenes as well. And we just need to see more cell shading stuff. But in terms of the gameplay sense, it is more of the same. And I guess that contrast to your point, where I've played not every single Musou game that comes out, but thanks to some of these licensed ones in recent years, I've played a fair few. And you're right, it does start to get a little bit monotonous after a while, and it quickly becomes that sort of game where, I've got half an hour. Okay, I'll bash out the next mission in the campaign. I don't feel like I'm compelled to keep pushing through it, but I'll just chip away at it in bits and pieces when opportunities come up. If it's not an appropriate time to sink some time into a big meaty RPG or the biggest new release or something like that, but I've got 20 minutes up my sleeve, I can knock out something in the Citadel, or maybe even a shorter mission or something like that. Obviously, I could even just start playing it and suspend it and resume it later. Like the save systems they've got mid mission are great, so got plenty of options in that respect. But it is, I guess, fairly safe.
It's an action, a B grade action movie.
Yeah.
If you think of it that way, you're happy to sit on a Sunday afternoon and just switch off and bash out a few levels, but it's not something you're going to go around telling everyone you've got to do this. It fills a niche and it fills it well.
Yeah, definitely not a bad thing anyway. Like I think in a sea of games that are ultra serious at times, and everyone's trying to do something crazy and new, this is not, and it's junk food in not in the bad way, but it's good to just sit there and binge a little bit and have a bit of stupid fun and then move on with your day. And I love having that sort of game every now and then, and Samurai Warriors 5 is filling that kind of void right now. So I'm pretty happy with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I've enjoyed my time, and I'm glad I took on the review.
Yeah, and who knows, maybe you've just gone slipping down the well, and maybe we'll see you playing... what are you talking about? I can tell you're super excited to go back and check out Persona 5 Strikers from early in the year, and then...
Know anyone from Persona to begin with, so playing it in the Musou mode.
I did that for a player 2 players and had no idea what was going on. So, thanks to all the Persona fans who gave me grief over that. Well, I think we'll wrap things up there, Matt. Make sure everyone to go check out Matt's review on the website. If it's not live as of when this video goes live, it won't be too far away, so keep your eyes out for that one. Again, thank you to both Koei Tecmo and Turn Left Distribution for sharing the codes. We really appreciate all that. And then the usual stuff, Matt. You're head honcho of the site. Go on, you can spruik.
Spruik, head over to player2.net.au. Check out everything we've got going. There's a lot of embargoes this week, so Flight Sim, Ace Attorney, a few others that should all be up as this video goes live. So keep an eye on that. We've also got our cooking series that I've
Player
been
2 cooks.
doing, where you can win your own bottle of hot sauce, and we've also got another comp, but that will be finished tomorrow, I believe. So
Too late for that one, everyone. But
too
keep
late
your
for
eyes
that
on the
one,
site
but
because there'll be more competitions that'll pop up.
more competitions. You can win yourself a bottle of hot sauce from Bethesda, and it is hot sauce, I'm telling you.
Yeah, right.
So
Maybe I'm
yeah,
glad I
keep
don't
an eye
have
on the
one.
site. Have a bit of fun. Join us.
Yeah, and if you're catching this on the YouTube channel, be sure to like, share, subscribe. All those buttons are down below. There's heaps of awesome content there. Player 2 plays. You'll see this game in action over the course of the next few days on the YouTube channel there. Heaps of other games that we're showing off regularly, some original shows. Be sure to go check all that out. And yeah, Matt's already shouted out the website. So the last thing is Twitter. Matt, where can we be found?
So81 or Player 2 AU, of course. So
Paul James Games for me. Everyone Samurai Warriors is out this week. So again, thank you to all parties for sharing us codes for the game. And you have your chance to pick it up this week. So fair to say it's worth getting it if you're kind of a fan of some mindless fun.
So as long as you haven't drowned yourself in previous Muso titles, this is a good pickup. If you've had your fill of the genre, it's probably not going to change your mind.
And yeah, otherwise it's a big power trip. So keep your eyes out for it. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone.